Hello girls, it's Mr Lovewell. Now this is an assembly on a topic that I would have never really wanted to cover, but in the midst of this situation I thought it'd be useful to follow some ideas to help us understand what has brought about this tragedy of a global scale that's now reaching almost every corner of the planet. Of course, the ongoing work to understand this pandemic may bring little comfort to any of you that have suffered losses, saving the knowledge that more lives may be saved in the future. Now, I'm not an epidemiologist. That's a type of sort of biologist geographer who understands how disease spread. And the media has also been awash with so many insights about the origin of COVID-19, some valid and some much more speculative. It needs to be clear that over the next few minutes, I cannot offer a definitive insight that answers all the questions. And the truth is, it may take years of investigation before we fully understand where this disease came from and how this happened. But I just wanted to share with you some thoughts which I can offer with more certainty, because these are things we knew before all this happened. Sadly, to an extent, this was foreseen. Many medical experts and even Bill Gates spoke out in 2015 on the approaching signs of an eventual pandemic of this nature. Did you know that there had already been pandemics in the 21st century, with SARS spreading from China in 2002 and MERS in 2012 from the Middle East? These were nowhere near as widespread because of the nature of the virus and the management of it as well. Now, the cause and origin of these diseases were already being studied. For example, in 2009, a major study into global patterns of coronaviruses had been carried out. It's called the PREDICT project. Now, they identified the single largest source of coronaviruses as species of bats. So do we try and reduce the number of bats? Importantly, the UK Bat Conservation Trust points out that bats perform essential roles in natural habitats, and many are endangered species. Now, bats in the UK are routinely monitored for disease, and they tell us they do not carry COVID-19. Now, they are also protected species for good reasons, which are worth looking into. Bats and humans do have direct contact in countries like Indonesia due to a demand for bushmeat, which leads to a lot of bats suffering a lot because of that. But there seems to be other organisms involved as well, sort of in-between organisms that humans can end up coming into contact with as well. In a 2019 Netflix documentary by Bill Gates, he identified the most probable source as a Chinese wet food market. Now, I'm not going into the gritty details, but in some of these markets, but not all of these markets, some of them, the food is held captive alive, freshly prepared and stored together from a wide range of species. And that ensures that creatures come into contact with lots of other creatures, bats and all sorts of other species. And then, of course, humans. But we need to be clear, again, that the World Health Organization explains that this is not the sole cause of recent disease outbreaks. And, for example, MERS and Ebola cannot be explained in this way. And there are still unknowns behind the transmission of these diseases into humans. Personally, I had little idea as to the nature of this international trade in exotic and sometimes endangered species as food or pets, until I led an expedition to the jungles of Borneo in 2013. There, as myself and a group of sixth form students worked at helping animals at the Matang Wildlife Centre, I was surprised to learn that most of the animals there were rescued from these sorts of situations. Some because of deforestation, but mostly from captivity. So the patterns behind these pandemics seems to be that they come from specific animals, but there are strong links to our treatment of animals and our increasing encroach on their habitats. There are patterns of poor food hygiene practices with the handling of meat, but need to be careful here. You don't get COVID-19 from actually eating food. What also is clear is there's a lack of perhaps serious investment in the research behind this and the preparation for these against these diseases. And we need to find clear answers to these questions. Because of course, once the disease transfers to humans, globalization takes over with its spread. And with our amazing rapid transport technology, we can spread disease faster than ever before. Now, be careful. Globalization brings many blessings and has raised the standard of living for billions of people, bringing much good. But this is one potential risk we arguably had neglected and not managed well enough. So, a virus that was in the natural environment gets transferred into humans in a way that it arguably shouldn't have. And that's all it took. Now, the Park model of disaster recovery. Have a look carefully. It's a line graph, begins from the left, and it shows that how we can view a disaster like this as a downward drop from normality. But then through management, the recovery happens. Management would include things like lockdown. And we appear to be kind of well on our way as a nation, hoping, of course, it's not going to be a second wave of this. But as we head back towards normality, if you notice carefully that actually there's this scope for recovery to a better quality of life. And that often actually takes place in the recovery from any natural disaster, be it an earthquake or a drought or something like that. So let's hope that we head towards this new better normality and pray that this continues. So let's all go forward and build this new better normality as individuals and as a school community. I think we owe it to those who have lost their lives and those who have given so much and will continue to give so much in protecting us from these hazards. Thanks for listening, and hopefully we'll see you all again soon.